History hinged on one speeding bullet. You're looking good, and it feels good to be with you today. I'm Kendall Bryan Hunter, and this is News with the Eye of Faith, or the Eyes of Faith, where I talk about news from the perspective of Christ and the doctrine of Christ, with the added insight of the Restoration. One speeding bullet could have changed history. So Trump won the Electoral College. More importantly, he won the popular vote, which gives a sense of legitimacy to what he's going. I think it's interesting. It's an unusual feel. There's no riots. There's no demonstrations going on. I feel like Heavenly Father is really quelling some hard feelings. There's carping, sniping, but it looks like we're going to get a mostly peaceful transfer of power. Pay attention. Make sure you pay attention to the history. There's the assassination attempt. You had the debate where. Let me pause for a technical thing. So remember the history, the assassination attempt, the debate. I don't understand what he said there at the end. I don't think he knew what he said. So you had the replacement scab candidate come in, and it was interesting, the flip-flop of energy. Of course, Trump had all the energy after the assassination, after the debate, and then with Harris coming in, she got a lot of the energy just because I think it was just because the left were put in a situation where they had to stop denying about things, denying that Biden was a good candidate, denying that they saw that during the debate. But they built up momentum. So this is one of the things we learn is that Republicans, you have to get up off your butt, work, and pony up the money. But think about what would have happened if that bullet had gone millimeter the other direction. President Trump would have a dead Don. He would have passed on. Oh, and I'm wearing the hat. The lady on the bus. This is the hat that the lady said wore this hat, and President Trump should be killed. I wear this hat. This is a time to celebrate. But think about what happened. President Trump dead. Who would have been the replacement candidate? Then you have Joe Biden, who would have still been running, and he's obviously on meds, and whoever controls his meds is controlling the country. The Babylon... And yes, the news item, Joe Biden is still president. The Babylon Bee reported President Biden calls Trump to cede the election. It's funny because it's almost true. I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Never forget that. Nancy Pelosi ripping up the speech. Never forget that. This may be a bit of a supersized one because this is an appropriate time to celebrate and to talk, but so feel good about things. But remember something that Rush Limbaugh always said: no victory is a complete victory, and no loss is a complete loss. We still need to evangelize. We still need to get the message out. We need to get the people off of the lazy boys and into the ballot box, to break out of the self-consciousness, realize that, you're going to have to unfriend people, and there are going to be vicious people who will attack you, and to unfriend them, but you have as much right to speak as they do. We need to nurture rising talent. Okay, 4 years. What's world like going to be in 4 years? Who's going to replace him? J.D. Vance? Is J.D. Vance getting the experience he needs to become president? I'll drink to that. And just something else to keep in mind. This is news with the eyes of faith. Don't trust in the arm of flesh, and don't fear the arm of flesh. Don't trust in the arm of flesh, don't fear the arm of flesh. So keep that in mind. So let me remind you of some debunks as you're seeing the social media meltdown. Here's some facts. Point, counterpoint. Trump is a fascist. George Orwell said, the word fascism now has no meaning except insofar as it signifies something not desirable. It's interesting, where I served my mission in Portugal, when you call someone fascista, you're just saying that they're rich and extravagantly rich. It doesn't mean anything. They just use that as an insult. Ask them to explain what they mean. Trump is an insurrectionist. Well, this was covered in his second impeachment. What do you know that Congress couldn't find? Because you believe he's an insurrectionist, but Congress couldn't find it. So where'd you get, what fact are you citing? Your document. And then I'll talk about this. So then they insult you. Trump got elected because of Russian collusion. I actually had a friend of mine, well published, some of his works published in the Joseph Smith papers. He said they're rejoicing in Mar-a-Lago and in Moscow. Trump got elected because of Russian collusion. This is debunked in the Mueller report. You can get cheap used copies of it. Trump said racists were fine people. This is debunked on Snopes. Now, I'm not providing links. If you're curious, you can dig this up on your own. Trump is a xenophobe. Well, his wife is Czechoslovakian. In fact, two of his wives are Czech. So a xenophobe marries two foreign women, and you can make reality function like that. He is. Trump is an anti-Semite. He moved the embassy to Jerusalem. It was in Tel Aviv, now it's in Jerusalem. And if you're curious, the anti-Semites are the Ivy League schools. We all know that. If Trump is a danger, why aren't the brethren condemning him? On the 11th, on November 6th, the First Presidency and Quorum of the 12 Apostles issued one of those generic boilerplate congratulatory statements. So if he's such a danger, why isn't the First Presidency condemning him? Now, I thought it was unusual. They didn't speak out against the assassination. President Nelson talked about George Floyd. They'd issue a statement on January 6th. No statement on the assassination attempt. Think about that. If you remember the party of John F. Kennedy, you're keeping quiet about an assassination attempt, RFK Sr. But, yeah, they're not condemning them. What do you know that the First Presidency doesn't know? Or are you so out of line with the First Presidency, you're off the cliff? So, more news. That's the election. I'll talk a little bit later on. The movie's coming. It's called Heretic, and it's about sister missionaries getting kidnapped. Now, I don't watch R-rated movies. You have to draw the line somewhere. And when you walk out of an R-rated movie, have that movie lead you to Christ. If you saw Oppenheimer, had all those pornographic scenes lead you to Christ. I have a friend of mine reviewed it, and this is one where he's just kept on talking. You could tell he was just overthinking it, and someone rationalizing an emotional attachment. Gift of discernment's real. So now I'm 100% for free speech. This is a movie that will put sister missionaries at risk. I put a link in ABC4 Utah. Are LDS missionaries safe? Horror movie Heretic raises questions in church community. I had a friend of mine who, she didn't get any specifics, but she is really agitated about this movie. And I said, yeah, this is going to put sister missionaries at risk. It's just implanting strange ideas into people's heads. The same way you call Trump a fascist or Orange Hitler, that leads to several assassination attempts. So, time to boycott this movie. Ladies, time to get your Hugh Grant DVDs and kiss them goodbye. Stick these DVDs in the microwave and turn your back on him for the sake of the safety of sister missionaries. Next news item. You probably saw this BYU professor. His name is David Carden. He's a math professor from his BYU site. So what he did after the election, he posted this sign on his door quoting the passage from Mosiah chapter 29 about the majority of people choosing wicked. Now, he's out of harmony with the First Presidency, because the First Presidency didn't say anything like that. But you allow people free speech. However, there's this X account, Anchor Still is what it's called, and I have a link to this one assuming it's still up. And what this person did is he posted a copy of the family proclamation on the door of this professor. So you got a picture of it. So it's not the formal one. It looked like it was just a computer printout. And he put it on the door. Then the professor came out, David Carden. He took it and he issued a disagreement. Now, keep in mind, this was a setup. Anchor Still was antagonizing him. Lastly, this is someone with a PhD. He's a BYU university professor, so he should have had some savvy about him. But he took it off the door and he just ripped the family proclamation up, just like Nancy Pelosi ripped up Donald Trump's speech. Well, this is definitely something for BYU's internal procedures to take care of. And I'm willing to let BYU investigate this and support them however they think he should be disciplined or no discipline at all. But we just something we really don't talk about as alumni of BYU. Of course, everyone gives money to BYU through tithing, so I'm not talking about pay a full tithe, don't deduct a infinite decimal. But when you start getting these year-end contributions things, say, I don't like the direction BYU's going. Looks like they're doing some things out of harmony with the church. Let me cut back my donation. Let me withhold my donation to the Alumni Association until you get these things sorted out. Now, that's an appropriate action from an alumnus or alumna. The alumni, we have a responsibility for our university. It's not just fundraising. We need to make sure that the university is on track. And BYU is a little bit odd. We are odd or a different category because it's run by the church, and the board of trustees are apostles, general authorities, general auxiliary leaders. Your diploma is signed by the president of the church, and you want to always defer to the prophet. But do you feel like BYU is bad for your testimony? Is BYU bad for your testimony? Why did Elder Holland have to the famous musket hoax speech? Why did he have to say that if things were hunky dory? All is not well in Zion, and all is not well at BYU. And you let your donations speak your concerns civilly, respectfully. Don't call people poo-poo heads, but concisely, robustly, and with confidence express your concerns about BYU. Yeah, BYU is bad for my testimony. Well, this week, this is released before the election. Probe Ministries, which is an evangelical group that I pay attention to, and so you kind of know what you're going at their perspective and where they're right and where they're wrong. But he talked about the liberal mind. It was really interesting. In the podcast, I'd recommend it, so I do have a link to it. It's about the assumptions versus verifiable facts. And as we're engaging people, there's 3 levels of engagement. You have the rarefied philosophical level, which I'm going to get into right now. You have the popular level. So that's like the scientific journals, and you have Popular Science, Popular Mechanics, Discover Magazine. Those are the popular stuff that help translate the scientific stuff into common language. And you have the one-on-one, heart-to-heart kitchen table talk. So that's a little bit what I'm doing right now. This is more of the second and third level. But I'm going to shift into the first level where you have this rarefied discussion. You have with philosophy, you have this category called metaphysics. What is it? And you have the cosmology aspect. That's how does the universe work? Is it matter? Is it spirit? Is there such a thing as spirit? Another question to ask, is there more than one form of reality? Monism, dualism, pluralism? B.H. Roberts came down on the side of pluralism in his book, The Truth, the Way, the Life. We talk about dualism, but there's an argument to be made that of pluralism. Are all events caused or random? Is there determinism? Is there tychism? Is there free will? Where did reality come from, if it did? What's more real, individual things or the categories, nominalism or realism? Another aspect of metaphysics is anthropology. What is man? Where does he come from? Well, we're created in the image of God. Is he by nature good or evil? Yeah. Is man free or determined in thoughts and action? Do men have rights? If you believe you have human rights, where do they come from? How did we get them? Theology, other supernatural beings, what are their characteristics? What is God? What is our relationship to him? Is there a savior, and what is the nature of the atonement? Now, you have a second category of philosophy. It's called epistemology. That answers the question, how do you know it? Metaphysics, what is it? Epistemology, how do you know it? Think of the word epistle, how the epistle gives you information about knowledge, and that'll help you remember it. What is knowledge? You ever think about that? You have a gift of knowledge, and you have a knowledge of the gospel, but what exactly is knowledge? Is it different from data and information and intelligence? How is knowledge acquired? What is reason? Do you have a distinction between reason and nature? Is it unmade? Is it will artifice? Is it made? Is there a rational will? Is there truth over time? Are things a priori or a posteriori? Do you have, is there such thing as inherent knowledge? Are things properly basic, or is just everything learned? How do we learn things? How did you learn how to speak or to read? I don't remember learning how to read. I remember not being able to read and then suddenly being able to read, but I don't remember the process of it. How reliable are the senses? Reason, revelation, science? What might impede knowledge? What increases it? What corrects it? Now you have the third category is ethics. And that's right or wrong. What ought we to do? What is it? How do you know what ought we to do? You have morality, which discusses right or wrong. You have axiology versus value theory. What is good? What is the good? What is the evil? Are there universal goods? Morality, axiology, and you have praxeology, which is behavior. What is right conduct? What is the best life? What is virtue, justice, and obligation? All ethical questions. You have politics, that's social ordering. How do we organize ourselves? Community, what's the best political order? Who should rule? To what ends? What is the best regime? How does government arise? Why does it? Must the individual good be the community good? Individualism and communitarianism. Can liberty, equality, or justice be attained? How? What is the law? Can government be preserved over time? How? Are there alternatives to government? And the last category, the next one is economics, and that's managing scarcity, managing your money. What's the best economic order? United order or capitalism? In defending free enterprise, are we snubbing the United order? What is the role of property rights? To what extent should government intervene in economic and social matters? Japan has a ministry of as an industrial ministry where the government intervenes in the development. Is that helping them or is that holding them back? You know how government payoffs work and cronyism. What's the nature of taxes, industrial policy? The last category is ethics or beauty. Aesthetics, I should say aesthetics. What is beauty? What is art? What is the relationship between art and man, art and reality? What is the end of art? So that's the categories of philosophy, and it's something that I put together over a number of decades, and I have it in the notes section. Now, here's another question. When you're dealing with philosophical questions and when you're debating people, how does reality function? Scientific theories, does your beliefs have explanatory power? Science are asked about, okay, do you have explanatory power? Can this explain things, your theory? The reason why people like the theory of evolution, because it can explain a lot. You had Newton's theories, but Einstein was able to explain more and predict more. The same can be said of your religion. Does your religion have explanatory power? The doctrine of Christ involves other planets. It's nothing new to us. The atonement affects other planets. Your political party, is your political party a valid scientific theory? What happens when your ideas get implemented? Compare, let's say, Utah to California, Florida to New York, Republicans versus Democrats. Which ones are the most prosperous? You base on fact or feeling. Can the feeling be untrue? And this leads to the point about why the left insults people. Now, this is how teach leftism, the Democrat Party philosophy, treating it like a scientific theory. Now, the left, they base things on feelings, a sense of fairness, and also on friends. So you intuit things by how you feel, sort of intuition, but what makes you feel good, a sense of fairness or egalitarianism and social justice, and also friends, community. Community just really means socializing, but community. But on the right, we base things on fact. The fact, what is the truth? The right tends to be more scientific. Just look at the economic systems, the United States of America compared with the communist countries. Yeah, I've been to Russia. I was to Russia 6 months after the collapse of the Soviet Union. So I saw what communism did to Russia. So the right, the political right, bases things on fact. They do it fidelity. That's just another way to do to talk about duty. Now it's interesting because basing things on a sense of fairness versus duty, those are really different, takes you different directions. And the last one is a sense of family. So friends versus family, and what that is, on your right, there's a sense of a natural order. What in Eastern philosophy is called the Tao, the Tao, the Tao Te Ching. And this is a term that C.S. Lewis used, that there's a natural functioning order. And we have to conform our life to this order, is how the right works. Whereas the left says, okay, how do you feel about things? Now, the problem is, an alcoholic, they take their drink because they like how it makes them feel. And that's the essential problem, is that you'll get swayed by emotions. The Book of Mormon talks about flattering words and fair promises. that you emotionally manipulate people and you'll win elections. There's a natural order versus autonomous constructs. I believe something to be true. It just doesn't feel right. Well, are you sure your feeler's operating correctly? And when you base things on feeling, that's sort of the an internal perspective, an internal, not eternal, but internal. You oppose upon reality, and that's why the left always labels. And I think that if you change a label, you change reality, and that's not true. You can call a P a V, but it doesn't make it a V, and you can't get pregnant if you have a P. I kept this family friendly. Calling a P a V doesn't make it a V, and you can't get pregnant. But that the left believes that you can relabel something, and it changes the nature of reality. That's magical thinking. It's the clash of feelings with facts. They respond with more emotion when you challenge their emotion. That's where you get the social terrorism involved. You're basing an idea based on your feeling, but also you trust people. Well, this other person says this is true, so I trust them. Well, are you sure that they're right? You feel a certain way and you trust another person who also feels the same way. The best way to check this out is if you have a question, do you look it up or do you ask another person? If you ask another person, that's a problem because they may not have correct information. This is something Aquinas said, is when you trust people, you always have to be a little bit suspicious because some people can make a good person can make an honest mistake. Now, Thomas Aquinas said, although the argument from authority is based on human reason is the weakest, yet argument from authority based on divine revelation is the strongest. And see, argument from authority based on human reason is the weakest. And so you have a person who says, well, I feel a certain way. I define myself, identify a certain way. That's based on human reason. That's the weakest argument because person do something because they feel a certain way. You're trusting people's information. It's not what is true, but what another person said is true. You see this with citing general authorities. Okay, take an example. Is God progressing? Well, this general authority said yes. Well, that doesn't tell if God's progressing. All it tells you is that a general authority said, yeah, they believe God is progressing. We don't have a revelation talking about how God is progressing in knowledge. We have no that says that. I'm not sure how this idea came out. I know that people who've said it, but we don't have. God never said it. God never taught that. So to circle back around is that the left bases things on their friends and on their feelings, on a sense of fairness, and it's the feelings plus community which becomes problematic. So once you disagree with the left, they'll ramp up their emotions, and that's where you get the shouting matches from. No, it's true because I'm making this more emotionally intense, and the more emotionally intense it is, it becomes real. Now you're just getting angry at someone because you're not winning an argument. And that's where the insults come in because they're ostracizing you from community. So you either feel the same, support them, become a supporting friend and enabler, which is probably a better word. And if they don't, they'll ostracize you from community. Base things on friends where the right can work with people who disagree with them. You sort of see this at work. Men can work with people who they disagree with, but women can't because they take it really personally. So over the years, I'm going to start refining it. That's very rarefied, but as I go over this, I'll be able to simplify that explanation and do it iteratively. But that's basically the rarefied thing, is that you have this whole category of philosophy, and if someone bases things on feelings rather than fact, they'll get angry with you and then insult you to ostracize you, to excommunicate you from community. And that's how the left works. You see it all the time. So lastly, this circles back around to what I said earlier about no victory being a permanent victory. We need to nurture talent. And one of the problems we have is we have the Rush void. When Rush Limbaugh died, he was sort of the lightning rod. And there was a bit of a fragment. We knew his death was coming, and they made preparations. Clay Travis and Buck Sexton took his slot, but who's replaces Rush Limbaugh? Well, you have Clay Travis and Buck Sexton, you have Sean Hannity, you have Glenn Beck, you have Mark Levin, Dennis Prager, and PragerU is a wonderful resources. I gobbled up Mark Levin's books, Liberty or Tyranny, the Freedom. I think it's called the Freedom Amendments. And it's more of a brain trust you see going on here rather than one person replacing him. The Daily Wire, Rumble, you see all these people that with Jeremy Boring is hiring more voices, people to listen to. But another thing to pay attention to is the people who are born again, the people who were left or just kind of disinterested with politics. They wanted to take their drugs and be a little loose with sex. But when it comes to free speech and tax policy, economic policy, they start leaning right. And it's the whole council culture is what started pushing them into the thing. And this is, you have the liberal. There's a difference between someone who's leftist and someone who's liberal. Then you have the on the right, it's the paleocon and the neocon. But on the left, you had people who were politically left that are slowly going right because of the extremism in the left. Joe Rogan is one. Yeah, he said they're getting drunk with Elon Musk. In fact, another one's Bill Maher. Sometimes I swear it's just like listening to Rush Limbaugh sometimes, the way Bill Maher talks with more profanity. When Bill Maher has that show, I think where he just gets drunk or stoned and as he's talking to people, I can't remember what it's called. Another one is Scott Adams, the cartoonist from Dilbert. And I've been following him for almost a decade now. It's funny because he just started out on a lark, but he started getting a following. And he's the same person. It's like, yeah, he does marijuana, he does mushrooms, but he wants to protect his money, and it's the cancel culture, the censorship that's really bugging him. And so he's speaking out against it. And with Trump getting elected, where this is a free speech friendly area, Rumble and X are good. But another one is Russell Brand. He's another one from across the pond. But think about that. There's not one person who replaces Rush Limbaugh. There's this college or this brain trust out there that's replacing him. And we all have sort of the people we listen to. But lastly, you can be the next Rush Limbaugh. That's what I'm doing here. I'm just adding my voice, and yeah, I'm in, sometimes single digits with the broadcasting, but I'll keep it up. It's helpful for me. It gets it out of my system, so when I show up to church, I'm not trying to hijack it. Church this Sunday is going to be kind of funny. We have, in my ward, we have the office of the ward heretic with his satellites, and it'll be kind of funny if he shows up and he's just going to rant and rave. It's like, stop blaming Trump. It's Harris was not likable, like Hillary Clinton. She's not likable. But, you can be the voice. When you retweet someone, you're part of this brain trust, this college of champions we have out there, that you're part of you can be the next Rush Limbaugh. So do what I'm doing. Let your voice be heard. Don't be scared to block someone. I've done it 3 times already with friends that I really care about, and I miss their voices, but they went toxic. So you're the next Rush Limbaugh. And that's news with the eyes of faith.